right, let me answer the fraction ones here first, least common denominator ones first. Okay, and then we'll move into the last thing with fractions. I promise you that this next thing on fractions is actually easier. The hardest thing you'll have to do is this least common denominator. So let's see, 2/3 minus a half. Okay, so smallest number that both these go into is 6. And if you double this one, you got to double that. If you triple this one, you got to triple that, and you end up with 1/6. Okay. 5/7 plus 1/14 is the smallest number is 14 that both of these go into. And when I say you double, you multiply this by 2 to get 14. So you got to multiply this by 2. And this one didn't change, the top doesn't change. And now you add them and you get 11/14. Okay? Let's see. Oh, left my eraser over here. Okay, so number 3 was 5/12 minus 1/6. So the least common denominator is 12. Okay, 5/12 stayed the same. This one doubled, so you got to double the top. And then you do 5 minus 2 is 3/12. And that reduces down to 1/4. You can divide both these by 3, so that was 1/4. Okay, 5/8 plus 3/4. Smallest bottom is 8. This one didn't change. This one doubled, so you got to double that. You get 11/8. And remember, that's improper. We don't want to leave it improper. So 8 goes into 11 one time with a remainder of 3 back over the 8. 1 3/8. Now, if you got here and got stuck, that's what you need to do on the next step of it. 1 3/8. Number 5 is 2/3 plus 7/9. Smallest number is 9. Okay, this one you multiply by 3, so you got to multiply the top by 3. This one didn't change. And now you add the tops, you get 13/9. You don't leave it improper. 9 goes into 13 one time with a remainder of 4 back over the 9. Okay. So that will be the most challenging, is this material here. Don't, the thing is, remember, like when we did multiplication, remember there's parts of it that you could have missed. So don't necessarily think because you messed up here, you messed the whole thing. Maybe you got the least common denominator right, but you added wrong. Maybe you did this right, but then you changed it wrong. So make sure you're not giving up on the whole problem, that you're working through as best as you can. And, partial credit and that kind of thing, you can go through and say, okay, I only missed this last part. Or maybe I did this right, I did this wrong, So kind of check where you made your mistakes, try to work from there. What we're going to look at now, this last thing, is multiplying and dividing fractions. Okay? So that was adding and subtracting. And the reason what makes those so hard is you got to have the same bottoms. What's nice about multiplying and dividing is you don't have to worry about denominators at all. So it really makes it easier to do this. So first off, let's look at multiplying. Whenever you multiply is like when you use the word of, like, hey, I want half of that. Well, that means you're going to take that whole thing and take half of it, you're going to multiply it by half. And so like, hey, I want half of that candy bar. You take the whole candy bar, you multiply it by half. You get, or hey, I want 1/3 of that. You take whatever it is and take 1/3 of it. So when you're multiplying, let's say I'm taking a half of a half. Okay, so half times a half. Well, if I take a half of a half, and let's say I have a half cup and I cut that in half, or let's say I have 50 cents and I cut that in half, I should end up with 1/4 or 1/4. Okay, and so this should come out to 1/4. Well, what's nice about multiplying, the process of it is very, very easy. All you have to do, you don't have to worry about the bottoms being the same. Now they are in this case, but you don't have to worry about that. All you have to do is multiply the tops, so you get 1 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. So a half of a half is a fourth. Okay. Another example is 2/3 times a half. Okay, let's say the bottoms are different, but it doesn't matter with multiplication. That's what's nice. You know, so think about this. If you have 2/3 of a cup and you're going to half it, you should be left with 1/3. When you take 2/3 and you cut it in half, you should have 1/3. So let's see if that comes out true. Multiply the tops, 2. Multiply the bottoms, 6. Reduce that down. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And it reduces down to 1/3. Half of a 2/3 is a third. But it's very, very easy to do. Just multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms, and you're done. You don't have to worry about the bottoms being different or the same. It does not matter. So really, multiplying fractions is one of the easiest things to do with fractions. Okay, so you're just multiplying. Let's say I want to use this as an example. Let's say, though, because I want to show one, let's say you take 2/3 times a whole number, 3. Okay, so let's say you're baking something and you're making 3 batches and you need to multiply a fraction, 2/3, and you need to do that 3 times. How many thirds is that actually? Well, this is why I want to do one with a whole number, because we need to know how to turn a whole number into a fraction. If you ever have a whole number like 3 or 8 or 2000 or 76, to turn it into a fraction, all you have to do is put it over 1. Because, think about that, 3, if I don't want to change the value, 3 divided by 1 is still 3. I've not changed the value, I just turned that into a fraction. So when I look at it like that, now I can do my multiplication. 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, 3 times 1 is 3. And remember, if you've got an improper, 6 divided by 3 comes out to 2. So, you know, if you think about what that is, 2/3, if you take 2/3 and you do that 3 times, you come out to 2 whole. You know, if we were adding that up, 2/3 plus another 2/3 plus another 2/3. Okay, 3 times. If I put that in, 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. The bottom never changes. That's where we get our 6 over 3 is 2. Okay, so even if you're taking something times, to go back to the original whole problem, is 2/3 times 3, all you got to do is make this a fraction and then multiply your tops and multiply your bottoms, and you're done. Okay, so that's it with multiplication. It's really just as simple as multiplying the tops, multiplying the bottoms. Dividing is almost just as simple. You just got to do one extra step. And to do that one extra step, I'm going to introduce a word, reciprocal. Okay, reciprocal. And all that means is you take a fraction. So let's say, I think I actually spelled that wrong. I love spelling. No? I'll write like the students where it doesn't even look like I knew what I was spelling there. But reciprocal is just taking a fraction and flipping it, okay? So let's say I have a fraction of 2/3. Reciprocal just means I flip that over and I make it 3/2. Okay, the reciprocal of that is to flip it over. Same thing if I had 1/3. Okay, if I had 1/3, I flip that over and it's 3/1 or 3. Okay, that's what a reciprocal is. Let's say I started with a whole number. What's the reciprocal of 5? Well, if 5 is 5/1, then the reciprocal of that is 1/5. I flip it. Okay, so that's all a reciprocal is taking a fraction or a whole number, whatever it starts out, and flipping it over. So the reason why I got to know that is when I go to divide a fraction. So let's say I'm taking 2/3 and I'm dividing it by a third. Okay, so what this is how many of these will fit into these. Okay, and if we think about baking again, I know I use baking, but I think most of us are familiar with that, is how many thirds go into 2/3? Well, we know there's 2 of them. You know, there's 2 of these that go into this. So how is that how can I do this as a math problem and come out with 2? We know we can do it in our head at this point, but how do I make this a problem? Well, we use a formula called keep, change, flip for division. And this is just for dividing, It is not for multiplying. This is just for dividing. Multiplying, all we would, if this was a multiplication problem, we just multiply the top, multiply the bottom. With dividing, you have to do one thing first. You have to keep, change, flip. By keep, change, flip, what I mean is you keep this fraction, the first fraction, the same. Make sure you don't flip that one. We keep it. You're going to change this to a multiplication. Okay, that's the change. And then the flip is the reciprocal. Flip this one over. Okay, so keep, change, flip. Now, all I do is now I have a multiplication where I multiply the tops, 6, multiply the bottom, 3, and we come out to what we were talking about. There's 2 of these that fit into that. Okay, so that divided by that is 2. Let's do another one. And this is just dividing. Okay, so we're going to do the keep, change, flip. Let's do, and what's nice is you don't have to worry about the bottoms again. 3/4 divided by 6/7. Now this one we could not do in our head. There'd be no way to kind of figure out how many of these fit into this. But if we do our keep, change, flip, okay, I flip that one over. Now I just multiply the tops, 21, multiply the bottom, 24. I still need to reduce. I can reduce this down, divide them both by 3, and I get 7/8. Okay, there's 7/8 of these that will fit into this. Okay, so not even a full one will fit into that, but it lets you know how to do it without it kind of makes it easier. Let's mix in a few whole numbers. Let's say I do 6 divided by 1/2. Okay. Now what that means is I need to make this a fraction to do my problem. So remember it's 6/1. So keep, change, flip. Okay. Now multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms, 12. Okay. Think about that. How many halves fit into 6? How many 50 cents fit into a whole $6? Well, there's 12 of them. Okay. Think about it. 50 cents is 1. 50 cents is 2. So there's 12 of those into 6. Okay? Let's do that around the other way. I'm trying to give you all the different examples you'll see. 2/5 divided by, start that over. 2/3 divided by 5. Okay? Well, first off, make that a fraction so that we know what we're dealing with. And then keep, change, flip this over, and now we get a multiplication problem. 2 times 1, 3 times 5, and that does not reduce down, so it's 2/15. Okay? Hopefully you're seeing that's much easier than least common denominator, and I know it is, fractions are the hardest. Another thing to do is look up a video. Math Annex, I know, has one on multiplying and dividing fractions. They break it down, do some more visual things that may help. So just kind of go with that. Let me put your assignment up that goes with this one. 2/3 times 1/3. 5/6 times 3/4. 6 times 1/2. These are all multiplication. These are not the keep, change, flip. Okay, 2/3 times 6. Okay, remember if they're whole numbers, to put them over 1. Then on these, you do the keep, change, flip. So these are going to be on these division problems. Okay, so that's going to be 1/2 divided by 1/2. 5/6 divided by 3/4. 8 divided by 2/3. And 5/6 divided by 4. Okay. All right. So there's your assignment for this, for multiplying and dividing fractions, and then we'll check those later.